What was that about? Gasped Annie and Clarabel. That was trouble. Trouble for James, just wait and see. Percy was back in the yard and busy shunting. He had the trucks in good order and was making up for lost time. But the station master had bad news. "What's happened?" asked Percy's driver. "James's brakes have jammed. We need Percy's help right away." Percy quickly set off to the rescue. He found James stuck on the line and looking glum. Percy couldn't help laughing. "Got yourself in a jam, eh, James? What you might call a sticky situation." "Be quiet," said James. "It's not funny having jammed brakes." "And not very reliable either," teased Percy. "I am surprised you let it happen, James. Nothing should stop us engines." "That's enough, Percy," said his driver. "Can you push these trucks?" "Of course I can," whistled Percy. "There's no time to lose. James has done too much of that already." James angrily hissed steam as Percy was coupled to the trucks. "Off we go," said Percy. "I'll have to go fast to get there in time. These big engines are so unreliable." "Be careful, Percy," called his driver, but Percy was in a hurry. He didn't see that the points had failed and that he had been diverted into a siding. "Look out, Percy!" shouted his driver and applied the brakes. But it was too late. The driver and the fireman had jumped clear, but squashed fruit squirted all over Percy. The fat controller arrived. "Percy, you are not to blame for the points failure, but I do not run a jam factory." "Yes, sir. No, sir." And Percy squelched sadly away. That night, the shed was silent. James and Percy felt very sorry for themselves. At last, Thomas spoke. "You know," he said to no engine in particular, "there's more than one way to get jammed. We all learned that today." Still there was silence. "What's more," continued Thomas, "we also learned that sometimes when engines help each other out of a jam, things can still go wrong." "So," said a voice. "So," finished Thomas, "that means we learned a lot today, and therefore," then came a chorus, "we're really useful engines after." "I'm Oliver, and I'm with my brake van Toad. We've run out of coal and have no more steam." "But what are you doing?" "Escaping." "From what?" "Scrap." Douglas shivered. Then he remembered Edward's story about saving Trevor. "I'll be glad to help you," he said. "It'll have to look as if you're ready for scrap, and I'm taking you away." The drivers and firemen agreed to help too. Everyone worked fast. "No time to turn around," panted Douglas. "I'll run tender first. Come on." But before they could clear the station, they were stopped. "Aha!" exclaimed the foreman. "A Great Western engine and a brake van too. You can't take these." "Ah, but they're all for us," said Douglas's driver. "See for yourself." The foreman looked all over Oliver. "Seems in order." "Right, away, guard." "That was a neat thing," puffed Douglas. "We've had worse," smiled Oliver. And they forged ahead. It was daylight when their journey ended. "We're home," cried Douglas. "Shh," said his driver. "There are the works. We'll find a place for Oliver." Oliver said goodbye and thank you, and Douglas puffed away.
The next day, Douglas told the other engines all about Oliver.
"The Fat Controller will have to know," said James.
"Douglas should tell him at once," added Gordon. "Well, here he is," said a voice. "Now, what's this all about?"
"Beg pardon, sir, but we do need another engine."
"Yes, sir," ventured Gordon. "A steam engine, sir." "I'm afraid that unless one is saved from scrap, there's little hope."
"But, sir," burst out Douglas, "one has."
"Yes, indeed, and thanks to you, Douglas, he is now at our works. Oliver is just what we need for Duck's branch line." Everyone cheered. Now Oliver and Toad are mended and painted in full Great Western colours. Duck and Oliver are happy on their branch line. The others laughed at first and called it the Little Western. Duck and Oliver were delighted, and so the Little Western it will always be.
James bustled in. "What's that, Duck?" he snorted. "Are you afraid of bees? They're only insects after all, so don't let that buzzbox diesel tell you different." "His name is Boko, and he didn't "I wouldn't care," interrupted James. "If hundreds were swarming around, I'd just blow smoke and make them buzz off." "Buzz, buzz, buzz," retorted Duck. The next morning, James arrived at the station to collect his coaches. The passengers were excited and keen to get on board. The platform was crowded and the porter was in a hurry. "Mind your backs," he shouted. Then there was trouble. The beehive fell and broke open. The station cleared like magic. James heard a familiar buzzing. The bees were too cold to be cross, so they buzzed around the fireman hoping he'd mend their hive, but he didn't understand, nor did his driver. So the bees turned to James. His boiler was nice and warm. "Buzz off," hissed James. One bee burnt his foot. "Ooh, ah, phew, phew." The bee thought James had burnt him on purpose. So it stung James right back on the nose. "Eee!" whistled James. He had had enough. So had his fireman and driver. They didn't notice till too late that they had left all their coaches behind. They tried everything to get rid of the bees. First, they spun on the turntable to no avail. They tried washing them off, but the bees clung harder to James's warm boiler. Then they tried smoking them off by going through a long tunnel. But still the bees wouldn't go away. "It's no good, James," said his driver. "We'll just have to go back to the orchard and fetch another hive." James's reply was drowned by the sound of buzzing. The vicar was waiting anxiously for James. When he arrived, the bees swarmed straight into their new home. "Come on, James," said his driver. "What you need now is a good hose down." Later that evening, James was resting in the shed when the vicar came to see him. "Thank you for saving my bees," he said. "It's a pity it's not Christmas, then we could call you James the Red-Nosed Engine." Everyone laughed, even James, but instead they decided to call James the Bee's Knees, which means they thought he was more useful than ever. "No, these are for Gordon's Express. I'll fetch your trucks next." But James was going to play a trick on the other engines. "Actually, Thomas, I'm taking the coaches. The Fat Controller asked me to tell you." "What about the trucks?" Give them to Gordon." "Come on, Thomas," said his driver. "Orders are orders." So when James's driver returned, James was coupled to the coaches and he puffed away. Thomas returned with the trucks. A few minutes later, Gordon arrived. "Where's the express?" Thomas told him about James, and so here are your trucks. Gordon was very cross, and so was his driver. Wait till the Fat Controller hears about this. Meanwhile, James was enjoying himself enormously. What a clever plan, what a clever plan, he chuffed. Then he saw the Fat Controller.
Some jokes are funny, but not this one, James. You have caused confusion.
Yes, sir, said James.
You will stay in your shed until you are wanted.
The other engines teased James.
I wonder who'll be pulling the express today, said Gordon.
I expect it'll be you, replied Henry. James is stuck in the shed for being silly.
James felt sad. Next morning, he went back to work. Hello, whistled Thomas. Good to see you out and about again.
I'm sorry I tricked you, said James. Are these my trucks?
Yes, replied Thomas kindly. They are pleased to have you back. James puffed into the harbour with his goods train of trucks. He bustled about all day, pushing and pulling them into place.
Time to go home now, James, said his driver at last. No trucks or passengers, just we two.
But his driver was wrong.
Excuse me, called the man. I have a meeting with Sir Topham Hatt, and I mustn't be late. May I ride back with you?
Of course, replied James's driver. Then he whispered to James, this gentleman is a railway inspector. James was most impressed. He steamed along the line as smoothly and as quickly as he could. The Fat Controller was waiting, and the railway inspector greeted him warmly.
This clever engine gave me a splendid ride. You must be proud of him.
Yes, indeed. James, once again, you are a really useful engine.